Not a matter of if, but when crisis will rock your world. I'm Roshini Rajkumar, crisis strategist, licensed attorney, and host of The Crisis Files. In each case file, we look at a real-world crisis or a topic that's making headlines. Are you caught up in the race of life, family, work, and neglect to appreciate all things you that are so special? Never fear. Chee is here to inject some enthusiasm in you so you can be the power of the only. Angela, you are a speaker, podcast host, and former TV journalist. You appreciate the power of words. This concept of yours, power of the only, or only, really resonates with me, especially as I was leaving TV news in 2006 to start my own business and created something that wasn't out there. But I'm guessing this applies to everyone in the world.
Yeah. Well, I believe that being the only is not a weakness. It's your greatest strength. And many times we don't see it that way, whether we're a visible only or an only trying to break the status quo, shift the norm, and create something new. Or even if you're, like you said, you're at a transitional phase, when you're trying to do something different, when you're the only one, it feels like there's, this resistance. And also there's the women in workforce study that came out, obviously women onlys in corporate, but I'm talking about all of us. When you're trying to do something different, it feels difficult, but I believe that it's your greatest strength, not a weakness, because of all the challenges that you've been through, because of what you've navigated. It gives you the ability to see beyond, right? To see things differently and to do things differently. So I'm so excited to step into it. And that's what I've been exploring.
Well, and it can be very lonely. So let's get into your 5 principles. I'll name the principles and I'll let you pick what you want to zoom into with us today. Angela's 5 principles in the power of the only. Own your opportunities, own your power, own your voice, own your communication, and the one I love the best, own your future.
I know it sounds so simple, right? But when you're the only one, what I wanted people to tap into is that people feel like, most of us, I've coached, hundreds of executives and entrepreneurs, most of us feel like we're not enough. And why are we not enough? From the voices in our head to the external. And sometimes there are actual external barriers. We're not denying that anymore, right? Before it was like, just go be confident, just own your voice, just own your power. And I think that narrative is starting to change. Is that, yes, sometimes the environment for certain individuals, it's harder than others, but we don't need to wait for the environment to change to step into our greatness. And that's where I think the power of the only comes from. And so when I think about owning your opportunities, yes, you should own the opportunities in front of you, but also not saying, like so many times, right, in TV news, someone says, you can't do this. Well, that's not possible, or this doesn't work, or that's not going to work. And you can either accept that or you can figure out another way. So it's not just taking advantage of the opportunities in front of you, but it's also not taking the answers that society has says this isn't for you, right? And then own your power. A lot of us just don't see our power. And
That's a big word. Power is a big word, Angela. And some people are afraid of that word.
Yes. And people define power in different ways. And I think that these days, it's okay to see power differently. I think in the old way, power needs to be a certain way, it needs to be strong and masculine and powerful. And now I think a lot of leaders, whether they're women or just a different style of leadership, have discovered that power can be how you define it, how you show up authentically. When you are centered in the core of who you are and believe in what you bring to the table, your value, that is your power. Not power in the traditional sense, right? Not power over, but actually power within. And so you're perfectly right. All of us don't see the power because maybe we define it by societal terms. And I think it's important for us to define what is our power and how are we going to show that.
I love it when you say the power within. So both of us are former TV news reporters. I live and breathe words. In fact, I don't like to call communication skills soft skills. Communication skills are the foundation and the umbrella for everything we do. Let's talk a little bit more about what you mean around power of communication.
Yes. Well, I believe that in order for us to own our power and our voices, if we don't have an avenue in which to connect with others, it really falls flat, right? You can own your voice, you can own your power, and if you're not connecting with others. So for me, communication is really connection. Are you connecting and getting the information that or the point that you want to get across? And I know as a communication coach, as former journalist, we know what that means. But I think for most people, they forget that it's not just skills, it's the connection part. So in communication, what I mean is your message landing the way that the audience wants to hear it? And that is the number one point of communication. And these days, I think people are just not communicating, right? Our world is so polarized, they're not connecting. So I think communication, it used to be, what am I saying? How am I performing? And I believe true communication is, how is it landing? Is the other person understanding what I say? Am I getting my point across? Am I able to make change, or even just to communicate on an everyday basis the way that I want to?
And I am a big believer in understanding your audience and really helping to shape and choreograph how you communicate in a way, as you say, that it lands with the audience. You really need to understand who the audience is. A lot of this takes energy, thinking about it, keeping yourself motivated. What do you have to tell us about conserving and protecting our energy?
Yes. And I know that you do this as a communication coach, right? I always tell my clients, your energy walks in before you do. So there's several parts to energy. There's the energy that we put out, right? How are we showing up? Are we aligned in who we are? Like my process is, you amplified, right? Are you amplified the way you want? And that is showing up in the energy that you want. So there's all these exercises you can do in order to keep your stress level down, but to the optimal level where we're showcasing our energy. But what I really mean about energy these days, right? It's not just what we project and how we feel, but also, are we honoring our space, right? The world is really polarized, and with technology changing every single day, there's so much information at us. So when I say protect your energy, I mean the energy that's going out. Are we honoring it and showcasing what we want for ourselves? But also, are we honoring our own headspace and our mental space? I think in the future, it's not really, all of us have access to so much information these days. It's not about power comes from not having the access to information, but are we able to discern what we bring in and what we keep out? And are we able to process it? So I think in the future, I talk about this with my kids all the time. When we were younger, it was like, how can I find out more? How can I get more opportunities? How can I get more information? And in the future, it's really going to be, what can I keep out and what can I bring in and what can I understand? Because as an only, when you're trying to do something different, when you think differently, there's going to be even more coming at you than in every day, right? There's going to be voices and people and energy that you may not want. So having the skill set of being able to honor yourself and protect your energy is going to be more important than ever. And I talk a lot about it in my podcast, in my upcoming book. I even talk a lot about media literacy because I think it's so important. As a former journalist, I just see so much chaos happening, and it doesn't need to happen that way. And if we have more discernment and able to protect our energy on what we bring in and what we process, I think it'll make a huge difference in communicating and connecting.
Discernment is so important, especially when you are consuming media headlines, consuming all the different offerings that are out there. Things are really thrown at us every second, not just every day, but every second. It's so
so evolved. Now, I've been part of the whole process, and so have you, but just to think back on everything that's happened, right? And in the news business and everything, it's just a lot.
Well, and what's really funny is I think about when I left TV news as that traditional news reporter, it was 2006, and those were the fledgling days of what we knew as Twitter. Facebook was still pretty young, all of those things. And I fought for a long time, even going on Facebook and creating a platform, creating a handle. And it was some of my TV journalist friends who said, you've got to be on it, you've got to be on it. So it's really interesting to watch that trajectory. I'd really love to leave people with some thoughts, your strategic advice. So once people really value the onlyness, their onlyness, what is your advice for leveraging that uniqueness in their world, whether it's their family life, their work life, their social lives?
Yeah. And I think, I spent 3 years interviewing onlys, right? Those breaking barriers, shifting the status quo, and creating positive change. And I think for all of us, we need to see that the power is already within us. And the reason I did my work, The Power of the Only, is because onlys feel alone, right? It can be lonely being an only sometimes, but you have to know that you're not alone. And the more I talk to people, the more I realize that most of us struggle with similar things. And yes, there's an added layer when you're an only, but to honor that and to know that we already have everything we need inside us to succeed. But we just need to show up and amplify it and also understand where all these blocks come from. So a lot of my process of showing up, even in my only, is shedding all the things in our past. It's like understanding who we are. Where do we get stuck? Right? As a woman of color, growing up as the only Asian girl in my neighborhood, the only Asian girl at my TV station. And now as a speaker, I know you probably have the same situation where I'm on a panel with all men. And it's okay for me because I feel the power in that. I see the strength in that. And where I think other people say, oh, I'm the only one. How can I do this? It's so lonely. So my advice would be really is to own your own power and see that there's value in that. Right? There's value in everything that I've been through, all the challenges I've been through as an only. That's what's honed me in order to see beyond what other people see, add that new perspective. And in this day and age, the power of the only, we are in that moment right now, is that we can trust who we are and see that there's so much going on in the world that we don't have to do it the same way. Even if there's no path, that's the path we create, and to find the power in that. So to see that you already have everything you need would be my advice, and to knock out all those voices.
It is really great advice. And I love that line. It can be lonely being the only. That is such a great line, but there's so much power in that. So, sometimes take the time you need just to, maybe you do need to have a good cry or a good anger session, at home, punching a punching bag or a workout to get out some of that negative energy, so that when you really can grow the valuing of that onlyness, that's when you really can make the magic.
I love what you just said, because part of, the work that I'm doing, I'm talking about, own your power, own your voice, own your opportunity. That can be exhausting, right? So I also honor when you're an only, like you said, it can be lonely, but you're not alone, but you have to own your future. And in order to own your future, that's what you have to do. You have to release the things that don't serve you. And many of us are burnt out, like onlys, we're just like, oh gosh. And so the next half is really honoring, what do I need? Not just pushing forward, but in order for us to succeed and to own our future, my main principle is this, is that you can't keep doing things the same way that you have been. Whatever I did in my 20s, I loved my gung-ho 20s and my news career and all that, but I had to completely reframe it, redo it for this stage of my life. And every individual is at a different journey and different stage, different career, whatever it may be. So honor the stage that you're at. And yes, protect your energy, let your energy out, whether that's, exercise, therapy, punching a pillow. I have a lot of, meditative exercise, but yes, releasing the energy you don't want, bringing the energy you do want. And that is how we're going to truly own your future. And I don't think we saw that before. I'm sure as a journalist, we were just like, nope, whatever it takes to get to the top, whatever it takes to get the story, whatever it takes. And now it's more holistic, I believe, in order for us to continue to thrive and not live in survival mode anymore.
So true. Well, great advice. Angela, thank you for many doses of inspiration. To get more Angela and to find out about her upcoming book, and we will have her back once that is out, go to angelachee.com. Today's Crisis Brief is brought to you by Minneapolis Regional Chamber. Number 1, being an only is a strength. Number 2, being an only can be lonely, but you are not alone. Number 3, honor your space, release what you don't need, protect your energy. The Minneapolis Regional Chamber is a proud sponsor of the Crisis Files podcast. The Minneapolis Regional Chamber is the area's most active business advocacy organization, playing a critical role in top issues impacting the region, including workforce development, education, housing, and transportation. Make your voice heard by becoming a member of the Minneapolis Regional Chamber. Learn more at mplschamber.com or Google Minneapolis Regional Chamber. Follow us on YouTube and Instagram at The Crisis Files. Rate, review, and subscribe to The Crisis Files on your platform of choice. Check out our website, thecrisisfiles.com, to catch up on all case files in one easy spot. I'm Roshini Rajkumar. Join me next time on The Crisis Files.